This is Andy Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by legendary promoter Bob Arum here in London. Bob, firstly, how are you?
Good, very good.
Glad to hear it. Now, Bob, Fury-Chisora 3, your man Tyson Fury returns on December 3rd. Talk to me about this fight, Bob. Tyson's going to be a heavy favourite in most fights in his career now, but what have you made of Derek Chisora's recent career and his most recent win against Purewal, the challenges he composed to Tyson?
Yeah. Chisora is one of the best heavyweights out there, and the fight that I look at is the close decision loss to Alexander Usyk. Remember, when Chisora was so close with Usyk, that fight could have gone either way, and Usyk pulled it out. People said Usyk had no chance with Anthony Joshua. And he dominated Joshua a lot easier than he did Chisora in both of his fights. So Chisora is a real tough opponent, and he's going to, it's life-changing if he can beat Tyson Fury. I don't think anybody can, but he's in there with a chance.
Bob, naturally there was a lot of disappointment the Anthony Joshua or Alexander Usyk fights weren't made for Tyson for the end of this year. And there's been a negative reaction to the Chisora fight being announced. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know, fans are entitled to feel one way or the other. But Usyk never was a possibility because Usyk let us know early on that he wanted to fight for early next year. Not this year. Anthony Joshua fight should have been made, but, Eddie, who's a good promoter, for his own reasons, felt that he would not cooperate and get that fight done. Now, why he took that position, I sort of imagine, but I really don't know. But it is what it is.
From your understanding, Bob, why did the AJ fight not materialise?
Well, AJ wanted the fight because AJ's a fighter, but Eddie Hearn didn't want the fight to happen at this time. Now, there are a lot of reasons I can speculate, but he obviously didn't tell me why he didn't want the fight at this time. One thing I'm sure is that he didn't want the fight to happen at this time.
Outside of, say, Usyk and Joshua then, and obviously the Chisora fight which has been made, who else do you think would have been a potential opponent? Mahmoud Shah said he'd received a contract, spoke to Frank, he said that wasn't the case. But what other options were there for Tyson?
Well, I think the best option was Chisora, really. We looked around, and Frank said to me, this is the best opponent that we can get.
Bob, have you had any further conversations with, say, Alexander Usyk or AJ's team about next year, especially with Usyk and that undisputed bout?
I'm meeting next week in New York with Usyk and with his manager, Igor Klimas, because Lomachenko is fighting October 29th in Madison Square Garden, and they'll be there, so we'll probably arrange a dinner a couple of days before the fight.
Interesting name. You mentioned Vasily Lomachenko on that front. He'd have watched, I'm sure, Devin Haney defeat George Kambosos again this past weekend. Is the plan to try and make Haney and Lomachenko next?
Yes, that is the plan. But again, I'll consult with Haney, I'll consult with Lomachenko, and I'll talk to Shakur Stevenson, and whatever. In the first quarter of next year, we're going to get a great lightweight championship match.
Shakur Stevenson, such a supreme talent moving up as well, Bob. You've just mentioned kind of him in that mix, but is he somebody you think will step straight in for another world title opportunity?
Well, he'd like to, yeah, I know. Shakur loves the competition.
Just on this card coming up, Bob, on December 3rd, will you be planning on getting any of your guys onto the undercard?
Well, I'll talk to Frank about it. We have a lot of guys that make sense, like Jared Anderson, terrific young heavyweight, is fighting a week later in Madison Square Garden, so he's not available. So probably we won't have any of our fighters on the card December 3rd.
It's a shame to hear, Bob, but I know it sounds like we're about to start, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.